So I know people are joining us, so welcome. And thank you for joining Women's Way for the Closing the Gender Wealth Gap Forum, strengthening the financial capability of women. I am Diane Corman-Levy, the Executive Director of Women's Way, and I'm really delighted that all of you decided to spend the next 90 minutes with us. By choosing to be with us when I know you are invited to so many virtual meetings and events, you are choosing to join the movement to promote economic equity and justice and improve gender equity for all women. So today's forum is part of a year-long series whose purpose is to educate different stakeholders about the drivers of the gender wealth gap and actionable steps that each of us can take to help close the gender wealth gap. Since October, we conducted 4 sessions which address strengthening the early childhood education sector, investing in women-owned businesses, gender and racial disparities in healthcare, and increasing access to affordable housing. Today's session focuses on strengthening the financial capability of women and why addressing financial literacy and capability of women and girls is important to the economic security of women and their families. You will hear from 3 amazing speakers who will address the issue from financial coach, financial advisor, and lived experience perspectives. You will also have opportunities to ask questions to the speakers via a Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to address as many of your questions as possible. The chat is also available, so if you want to engage in this discussion via chat, please do. I always love seeing those comments. They're always very interesting. And we will hopefully pop some links and resources that you can view. We are also recording this session, so we can make it will be made available for you to view again if you want to watch it twice, and for those who cannot attend today's sessions. So I would like to first start and talk about kind of the economic state of women and really what the gender wealth gap is. But first I want to thank our corporate sponsor, our session sponsor, who is Permanent Capital Advisors, and it's the support from folks like Permanent Capital that really enable us to do these education forums. So thank you, Permanent Capital, for sponsoring this event. So just briefly, I'm going to talk a little bit about Women's Way and more importantly, about the economic state of women and the gender wealth gap to give you more context about this discussion that we're going to engage in. So for those who don't know Women's Way, we're the leading nonprofit organization in the region dedicated to the advancement of women, girls, and gender equity. We were actually the first umbrella funding federation in the United States specifically dedicated to women's issues. We started in 1977. And so we've been working at this for about 44 years. So the economic state of women, which I know a lot of you have been hearing a lot about in the news and across the region, across the country. But before COVID, the economic state of women wasn't great. Nationally, women and children were 73% of the poor. Philadelphia had the highest poverty rate at just above 25% among the 10 largest cities. And the largest demographic group living in poverty in this region were women ages 25 to 34. And often when women are poor, children are poor. So it's not surprising that over 37% of children were poor in our region before COVID. So what's the impact been on women? And there's been lots of impact, unfortunately, a lot of negative impact on women. So nationally, 4.5 million women have lost their jobs or dropped out of the workforce. Nearly 2 million remain unemployed. In April of this year, all job gains went to men. And workforce participation rates for women hit 30-year lows. So prior to the pandemic, we actually saw more women engaged in the workforce than ever, and this has really set women back dramatically. Some of the driving factors for this is women account for 74% of employment in high contact occupations, which were really hit hard by COVID-19. I think you've been hearing a lot about the lack of childcare infrastructure or family-forward workplace policies. Thank goodness the Biden administration with Kamala Harris is really trying to build a more robust childcare infrastructure. And connected to this is lower paying jobs without benefits and paid family and medical leave are dominated by women. So when some women are literally choosing to drop out of the workforce because it costs them more to work than not work because of their low wages and the high cost of childcare, which is just really crazy and sad. So, you know, the economic state of women, is horrible for women, is terrible for children and families, and is really bad for our economy. So if the conditions for families don't improve, and if levels of maternal labor force participation in work hours experienced during the pandemic persist long-term, and we're not seeing it go away right now yet, lost wages would amount to over $64 billion per year. So again, the pandemic has exacerbated gender inequality in magnitudes and is really having a huge economic impact on our region and across our country. So why build wealth? And I hear this a lot from lots of folks, like, oh, low income people, women, why are we talking about wealth? Wealth is only for wealthy people. We'll have a more discussion about that. But wealth is about assets. And if we really want women to be in stable positions and thrive in their families, then we have to go from an anti-poverty to an asset building framework. And we'll talk more about that. But assets enable women to remain stable through financial emergencies. Why were women hit so hard during the pandemic? Because they were already in a financially precarious position before the pandemic. Many of them didn't have emergency savings. They didn't have anything to fall back on. And so when there's a crisis, it just destabilizes them and their families. It allows women to maintain good health. It improves children's opportunities, live with housing security, take risks that results in better jobs or business startups. Many women that want to start businesses have to go into debt to start their businesses because they don't have any assets that they can invest in a startup. It allows them to pursue a higher education for themselves and their children. And another interesting statistic is there's more women graduating from college than men, and there are more Black women graduating from college than anyone. And yet with college degrees, it's still not closing the gender wealth gap. It's not enough. And then retire securely. The fact that women are dropping out of the workforce now has immediate impact, but also long-term impact, because when you're out of the workforce, you're not putting money into your Social Security, you're not putting money into your retirement. 65% of people who are poor in retirement are women. And that's just going to worsen because of what we're seeing. And of course, assets enable women to pass on security to the next generation. If we want to break intergenerational poverty, then we need women to have assets that they can then pass on to their children. And another important piece is assets enable women to participate and shape political and social agendas. I know many women who run for office, and the first thing they ask you is how much money can you raise, and you need to quit your job, and women who don't have assets and some savings, it's very difficult to run for office. So why invest in women's wealth? Well, advancing women advances our region and nation. So before the pandemic, women did comprise more than half of all workers. Unfortunately, it's now less than that, but they were a huge part of our workforce. And nearly half of the mothers are primary breadwinners for their families. So they are the primary breadwinners. So if mothers are not doing well economically, then their children and families aren't. And women drive 70 to 80% of all consumer purchasing. I mean, we are the drivers a lot of this economy. So investing in women is good for business, is good for our economy. Another good reason to invest in women's wealth is parental assets are the strongest predictors of children attending and graduating from college. So when parental assets are greater, more children are going to attend and actually graduate and complete college. And then closing the gender wealth gap, this is based on economists, would result in an overall GDP gain of over $4 trillion, over 13,000 per person by 2025. So as they say at the bottom here, empowering women is smart economics. So what is the gender wealth gap? Now, I don't have the latest data. This was before the pandemic, and I predict it's probably worse. But at median, single white women own 32 cents on the dollar compared to single white men. And for Black and Latinx women, they own less than a penny. And what's really bad is because of lack of disaggregated data, there's not enough good data on Asian American women. That's lacking. Indigenous. So that the reason it's not up here because there's not enough data to even talk about those populations, and there's a whole need to do that. And the gender wealth gap has not improved for the past 50 years. In fact, now it's worsening because of the pandemic. So what are some of the causes? Well, women earn less than men, not because they're less capable, not because they work less hard. One, there's still pay inequity for the same jobs. Two, occupations that are dominated by women are undervalued and paid less. So, and also women are still the primary caregivers, so they tend to step out of the workforce more and take care of children, sick parents, so they earn less than men. They're also more likely to be denied mortgages and loans and to be overcharged for them, even though they have oftentimes better record of paying back their loans. and that's grounded in a lot of gender and racial biases. They're vulnerable to predatory lending, and I actually have that down twice because we're going to be talking about that. Because predatory lending, they tend to go after those folks who are more vulnerable, and we're going to talk about women tend to be less, have worse financial literacy, so they tend to be, predatory lenders tend to go after them. They hold more debt, including 2/3 of all student debt. So more women are graduating from college than men, but they're also holding on to a lot of student college debt, which is really a huge driver of the gender wealth gap. Occupational segregation, I said that before, that means that occupations dominated by women are often paid less, undervalued, and so we've seen that, and that continues to be a problem. And they provide the majority of unpaid caregiving. So when I started at Women's Way in 2017, we just decided as an organization we have to make economic security of women central to promoting gender equity. And so we started something called the Women's Economic Security Initiative, and the purpose is to build it's a long-term system level collaborative initiative. So we know that one organization or one sector cannot solve this issue of the gender wealth gap. We have to get people from different sectors centered around a shared vision that all women in the region attain financial well-being for themselves and their families. So this is a long-term strategy. It's a long-term vision, a long-term investment, because it's going to take a long time to get to a point where women are really building wealth, because we have to deal with the systemic and root causes of the gender wealth gap. So we have to foster systems level learning and change. And we had to break down silos across organizations and sectors such that we really work together and have all the stakeholders coming up with creative solutions around this really important issue. So the network, we have about 82 active partners representing 54 organizations. This has changed because we have some, it's increased since a little bit since I did this slide. But we have a lot of partners, and they span nonprofit, for-profit, philanthropic, and public sectors. And really important, women with lived experience of economic insecurity are at the table. Their voices and experience are centered. They are co-designing, co-creating strategies around what are our priorities, how do we address these priorities, and where should resources and money go. So they are co-leading this whole initiative. And I want to just briefly define financial capability, because we are talking, that's the title of this, and what do we mean by that? And this was kind of a combination of some other definitions, but we define it as the capacity based on knowledge, skills, attitude, self-efficacy, and access to manage financial resources effectively and take effective action toward achieving individual and family financial goals. It's a lot of words. I highlighted attitude, self-efficacy, and access because a lot of programs focus on knowledge and skills. Like they teach you how to do a budget, they might teach you about credit scores, but that's not enough. So attitude and self-efficacy has a lot to do with motivation, how women relate to money, how they think about money, what is their personal story in relation to money, how confident are they? And also critical, how do they have access to financial products and services that are tailored to their needs and that meet their needs and that can really allow them to build assets. So that's how we define financial capability, and we'll be talking more about this with the panelists. This fall, we're going to transition the Women's Economic Security Initiative to the Gender Wealth Institute. It's the next evolution of WESI. And the reason we're rebranding is because we really want to focus on the words gender wealth. It's about closing the gender wealth gap. It's about doing asset building, wealth building framework by advancing research and practical solutions that build wealth for women who are economically insecure. And you'll hear a lot more about that. So who are the panelists? And I'll make brief introductions, and I know that's why you're here. So briefly, Dinette Rivera is the director of the Bilingual Academy for Leadership Excellence and CEO and founder of Rivera Business Development Group. She is also a University of Delaware certified financial coach and financial coach trainer and author of the Successful Living Action Plan, Your Path to Prosperity, published in English and Spanish. Her mission is to inspire the positive behavioral changes necessary to become self-sufficient and self-reliant. She helps her clients redesign their lives and businesses to enjoy more freedom. Her belief is that your life's work should help you live the life you dream of. What she shares with her clients is a lifetime of experiences and work research into evidence-based practice standards for improving training and education results. Kimberly Crowley is a founding partner and serves as the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Compliance Officer for Permit Capital Advisors, who's our sponsor for this session. Permit is an SEC-registered investment advisory firm that provides financial services to high net worth families as well as nonprofit foundations. Much of the advice the firm provides is around aligning investment assets with the values of family and the mission of an organization. At the firm, Kim provides leadership and strategic vision, as well as oversight of the firm's operations and compliance programs. Kim has spent her entire career within the finance profession, and while she is pleased that there has been an industry effort to become more diverse and inclusive, she recognizes that there is far more left to be done and has been accomplished in this regard, and she'll talk more about that. She is proud of the progress that Permit has made in becoming a more equitable organization with respect to ownership, employment, and investment philosophy. She serves on several boards of directors, including the Philadelphia Kids in Care, Acting Without Boundaries, and the Nightlight Foundation. She also serves on the steering committee of Women's Way, Women's Economic Security Initiative. Taya Bullock is an expert on improving individual financial wellness. For the past 3 years, she's been working with Clarify, which is a Philadelphia-based organization whose mission is to empower individuals to achieve financial resilience and build pathways to financial wellness that are accessible to everyone. During this time, she has improved her financial status by increasing her savings, paying off all debt, and improving her credit score. She continues to build her savings that includes an emergency savings account. Taya has also attended several homeowners educational workshops and plans on buying a house in the next few months. So I'm really delighted to have all three of you with these amazing panelists. And then we're very fortunate to have a wonderful moderator, Markita Morris-Louis. Markita is the Chief Strategy Officer for Compass Working Capital, a national organization supporting families headed primarily by women of color, living in federally subsidized housing and building assets as a pathway to greater economic opportunity. Markita oversees Compass's Philadelphia office in collaboration with the Philadelphia Housing Authority. As Compass's lead on building a national strategy for scale and impact, Markita also directs Compass's expansion into new markets and builds and executes its plans for engaging technology in service of families. Markita is currently chair of the Affordable Housing Advisory Council of the Federal Home Loan Bank of Pittsburgh. In 2018, she was appointed by the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania as vice chair of the Interest on Lawyers Trust Accounts Board, which funds organizations providing free civil legal services to Pennsylvanians. She also sits on the board of Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, which provides housing and economic development opportunities for communities with low incomes. For her service, she has received many awards, such as Woman of Distinction by the Philadelphia Business Journal in 2015, and Social Mobility Innovator by Social Innovations Journal in 2016. Markita grew up in North Philadelphia in subsidized housing and believes that a vast redistribution of wealth is necessary to close the racial wealth gap. So it's time for me to stop speaking and listen to the folks and why you're here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Markita, take it away.
Thank you so much, Diane, for level setting. Welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I want to give a special thanks for Women's Way for having me. It's such an honor to be part of this work. I remember the early days of WESI, the Women's Economic Security Initiative, and being part of those meetings. And I'm so excited to see the evolution of your work over these last several years. So thank you so much, and to the entire Women's Way team for putting this together. I'm really thrilled. I'm excited to be having this conversation with these three dynamic women who I'll ask to join on camera and unmute themselves when they're ready to speak. We're going to have an engaging conversation. Please put your thoughts and your comments in the chat, specifically your questions in the Q&A button. We will get to as many of them as we can. But let's break this down. Let's have this conversation about women's financial capability, what that means, what actions we can take to get there, and all the work that each of us are doing in support of it. So I want to ask each of you, and I want to start with Dinette, what are some of the challenges and the barriers that women face generally in trying to get to a place of financial capability? And with your work, to kind of situate your work in that, how does your work help support them along their journey? And come off mute, please.
Thank you for inviting me to be here. And so for me, I, as a financial coach, I work at this from the knowledge and wisdom perspective when it comes to finances, because I feel like that is an area that we can work at that doesn't have a cost, in an immediate cost necessarily, because we have access to women in many different ways. And I know that I found that for me, that was the problem for me as well. I was a military spouse, and at the time we weren't taught anything about finances. And so that creates such a problem when we don't know what we don't know, right? And so for me, what I've been doing all these years is I became a financial coach probably 13 years ago. And I've been training financial coaches and individuals in financial coaching as well. And I try to use that as the tool to help more and more women become comfortable with finances, so that then it leads to that wealth building and overcoming these barriers that Diane had talked about before we even got started, and that we all know well.
Great. Thank you. Taya, could you tell us a little bit about your journey and the work that you've been doing, working hand in hand with the financial coach? Diane gave us a little bit of an overview, but would love to hear your perspective. What's that been like for you?
It's actually been a wonderful experience. When I first started, I was like $8,000 in credit card debt. And I really didn't know, how did I get into debt? I didn't know. I worked every day. Where's my money going to? So I started with a budget, and the budget did work out, but I had to do other steps with the budget. With the financial coach, she said, save all your receipts and write down everything you buy. And that's what I did. So I wrote down everything I bought. And within 2 months, I had a receipt envelope like this big. And we went all the receipts and everything. She said, you spend too much money at the dollar store. And I'm like, you think you go to the dollar store, you get cards and stuff. That stuff adds up. Every week, I didn't realize I was spending about $64 in the dollar store each week buying this. I didn't know how much money I was spending on fast food, because sometimes like, when I would go get deals, I would say I would go get the specials. So I didn't realize I had the money, but I was spending it in the dollar store and dining out when they had the specials. Even though it was a special, I shouldn't have been really dining out. I should have been eating at home. Another thing is too, buying gifts. I didn't realize I spent so much money going out and buying gifts, and it was just amazing when you actually see things on paper. You see exactly where all your money going at. And I was able to get out of debt really, really fast, like immediately fast, by just writing down things, getting proper education on knowing what to do when I get paid, putting money away. And I always save money, but I just didn't realize what's going on. So everywhere I go, I make sure I run away from the dollar store. Even if they have the specials, I try not to dine out so much, and just sticking with my budget too, but being educated on where's my money going to, how much I'm trying to spend on certain things. And then moving on, how much I was putting in 401k. She was able to help me with these things. How much should I be putting down for the down payment of my house? I had a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful financial coach. She held my hand. I've asked questions. She emailed me back. One of the things the young lady went over, motivation. She actually motivated, I did have the motivation, but she actually motivated more, stay on top of it. And I had to tell myself, stay on top of things, get more educated on the things that I need to learn, to stay with my budget and being able to move, setting my goals and be able to follow my goals.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to make this clear to everyone that, these kind of financial coaching is something that all of us can benefit from, right? And for the longest time, I know there's this conversation, it's constantly kind of brought up financial literacy, financial coaching in the context of families, individuals, women in particular with lower incomes, but it's actually something that higher net worth individuals have enjoyed for a long time. We just usually use the term certified financial planner or financial planning when it comes to people who have more resources. So just to be clear, it's about access and opportunity, right? And folks having access to these resources. So Kimberly, would you share a little bit with us about the work that you do and how you specifically, how you support individuals and families in thinking about, how to build long-term assets and how to be financially stable?
Yeah, I'm excited. We look at strengthening the financial capability of women, not teaching, not assisting, not creating, but because as we all know, women are financially capable. They are. It's just access, right? So that's why women lead so many households. I mean, it's evident to everyone. So to us, the key to alleviating financial insecurity is through women, because they've taken responsibilities for their families and they haven't looked back. Strengthening financial capability of women sometimes starts off with a reminder just about the math involved. There's a quote from Albert Einstein that I like to share with the women that we're working with when they're starting out in that journey. And he says, compounding interest is the 8th wonder of the world. Those who understand it earn it. Those who don't pay it. And part of what we do as financial advisors is to reinforce that on an ongoing basis, and as well as making sure that women have the tools that they need to live by. Those words on both sides of the equation is savings and debt. So we work with women of all ages, and we like to think we share with them their journey as partners, reminding them that they aren't alone, that the challenges that they think they're facing are completely insurmountable, that there are so many people in their same shoes that started in that same place, and that they truly are not out of reach, and it's within their capabilities to give their families what they want and what they want them to have going forward for security and independence.
Thank you very much. So we're going to be we're using different terms to describe a lot of different kinds of work: financial planning, financial coaching, financial literacy, capability. Diane defined capability for us early on. Dinette, could you talk about, as someone who's a coach and who trains coaches, can you talk a little bit about financial literacy, particularly financial education, and the difference between financial literacy and you see in coaching, and kind of the difference between the sort of outcomes that are generated between the two?
Sure. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So financial literacy has its place in that it helps someone understand basic foundational things about things like, what is a budget? What is an emergency fund? Why should we have one? And all the components of, for example, of a financial plan, right? Estate planning and other investments and things like that. And then we have financial coaching, and why financial coaching and how it's so powerful is because a financial coach helps the client to understand some of those basic concepts if they're not familiar with them. Or if the client says, I really need to work on a budget, we have a conversation about how much do you know about a budget? What do you know about it and all that. However, where it changes and where over the years I have seen incredible outcomes is because a financial coach doesn't tell someone what to do. A financial coach, like any other coach, depending upon the industry, we work with the client to help them understand and discover their own power to make decisions around it. So yes, we give them the financial literacy. If that's what they need, we provide them with resources like someone like Kimberly that they can go to then begin to understand more about investments and so on. But a financial coach is that partner with them that helps them to ask the right questions and gets them to come to their own conclusions, why they want to start a budget, why do they want to save. And it changes because if you have ever been told what to do when you were young, if you can remember, or when you work with your children and you tell them what to do, there's always resistance because we don't want to be told what to do. So if we use the traditional financial literacy model, people will say, yes, oh, sure, I'm going to work on a budget. I'm going to, save. Yes, yes, yes. And then they go home and they do nothing because they go back to their habits. They don't understand why they want it. But once somebody understands, why do I want to buy a house? Not just because I want to have a home, but because it's a safe place for my children. It's about asset building and all those other things. And that comes from a coach really having the conversations with them about why they would want to change, envision their life. And so many times I find when you work with some of the most disadvantaged populations is that no one has ever even asked them, what would your life look like if you could? What do you really want for your life? And when a financial coach spends a lot of time with the person, letting them discover why they want to do better, and then providing the resources and the tools, and the impact is really, really amazing.
Taya, I see you shaking your head in agreement. Could you talk a little bit like what's
Absolutely. She touched on so many things. Ooh, I can't even begin. The first one, I think that she was saying that people say they want to do things. You know, you want to buy a house, and they go home, you give them the literature, and you're going to use it. I did receive a lot of paperwork information, and I get information, I pass it on to other people. And I gave it to like 10 people who said they want to move. Out of the 10 people, only one person stuck by it. And I was like, I gave it to 10 people who really said they want to move, want to buy a house. You got to want it for yourself. You got to understand this. I want to buy a house because I want to live in a better neighborhood. I want to live in a country, whatever you want to move for. I know I want to move because I want to have a backyard. I want to have big family outings. I want to open up a group home in my house. I want to do foster kids. So many things I want to do in my home. And these are things I want to do in my home, but I got to stick with the prize. In reality is sometimes it's like, okay, I was saving so much money and I saved. And then I said, you know, for Thanksgiving this year, I want to go to Disney World. And I told myself, I want to go to Disney World. And I said, oh, it'd be so nice. I'm not going to buy an airplane. I'm not going to buy airplane tickets. I'm going to drive. I'm going to drive down there, save me some money on gas and, you know, I'm not save money on airfare. I'm going to drive down there and I'm going to have a good time. And I got some good tickets and I'll have a good time. I talked to the financial coach. She said, don't you want to move? I said, yeah, I do. But this is a cheap way to go. I want to drive. She said, you're going to drive 16 hours and pay the tolls and drive all the way down there. That can wait. And, you know, I had to get a reality check. It can wait. I'm spending, Disney is really expensive. You know, the theme park tickets is still expensive. I had to go set my goals. Like, you know, this is what I want to do. I want to save my money. I can't be going on other trips and doing this because I got a little good ticket here. No, you got to stick to it. I want to buy a home. When the pandemic happened, people were like financially struggling. I had me a nice emergency fund and we were in a house and sometimes kids say, you want to order pizza? And I'm like, no, we can't order pizza. We have to make the pizza. You have to stick with it. You got to have your mindset like, this is what I want to do. So I can't spend the money. I can't spend the money. I have to keep saving. My goal is to save. Just because we're going through something right now, we're in crisis. I got to still stick with this budget. And I stuck with my budget the whole time through the pandemic.
Taya, I'm so glad you brought that up in the pandemic. Could you talk about just kind of mentally, emotionally, how it felt to go into the pandemic with some emergency savings?
It was a wonderful experience. I'm a head start teacher. So I have about 17 parents on my caseload, and I heard stories after story. I'm not financially stable, I'm this, and I'm like, you know, let's try to, I would give them a connection to food pantries, saying, are you okay? You okay? In the back of my mind, like, oh, okay, I'm okay. You hear, this is real. This is really happening. People are scrambling for money, and I was safe. I was safe. And I was okay. But it's a really good feeling to know that I had money to lean back on. And I didn't know if I was going to get the phone call that I was going to get laid off. The first happened, 2 weeks, everyone's getting laid off. And I was talking to my job, what are we going to do? They said, we don't know. We got to see how funding is. That's like, what am I going to do? What I'm going to do? It was so shaky. I heard everyone was saying, I lost my job. And I didn't lose my job, but I still had my job the whole way through. But I still had my emergency savings and I was okay. And I'm like, okay. There's a lot going on, but at least I have something to fall back on. I do have money. If anything happens, then I'll be okay.
Right. I'm so glad you raised that, because a lot of the conversation, that's the power, literally the power of assets, right? And we talk about, when we talk about poverty rates, we often talk about income poverty. That's just to be very clear. And everybody, probably most folks are on this webinar, really, if you're in Philly, you know the stat about Philadelphia, and the income poverty rate has hovered around 23 to 25% over the last 5 years or so. And it's making kind of slight declines since kind of the height in 2016. But that's only one part of the story, right? We have a 24, for sake of argument, 25% income poverty rate, but a 12% unemployment rate. So obviously there's something else going on that's causing people to not reach their full kind of financial security or full potential financially. And so when we talk about asset poverty is something that is not often part of the conversation, but it's really important piece to understanding true financial security. And asset poverty is basically the inability to meet your basic needs for 3 months. In the event of a job loss or an unexpected expense. So to have 3 months of cash on hand to be able to meet your basic needs, to pay for health, housing, food. And that rate in Philadelphia is actually 49%. So we're hovering around as 25%, but almost twice that in terms of asset poverty. That's when we got to start having this conversation about what does it look like to have emergency savings when a pandemic hits. There's going to be another crisis down the road. And so definitely, I'm really proud of Women's Way for having, having this conversation, talking about the importance of asset building. And I would love to hear from Kimberly the ways that you support your clients, or the myriad ways that are available for folks to begin to think about building assets, short-term and long-term.
Yeah, I think it starts, I think we were talking about financial literacy. It starts there, right? Gaining that knowledge and taking that knowledge and working with a financial coach. And that really is the starting point. I think financial coaching is such an important piece. When I think of financial coaching, I think of somebody sitting next to somebody and being by their side and being their partner and understanding their experiences and listening to them. So when you get to that point, then you can start those building blocks. Those building blocks start simply with looking at, what do you have in debt? What are your expenses? And what's our plan, right? Because when you put a discipline together and you build a plan of, you have this debt, little by little, we're going to start chipping away at it. But while we're doing that, we're going to start saving too. So you can see those numbers start to move and you see the evidence that you can move forward. It takes the smallest step. And I think the hardest part is taking that first step. That's what I've seen in my experience. Taking that first step when you think it's not going to matter, it's too little, it doesn't mean anything, but that's where it starts. So you go from there. And as you see that process starting to work and the independence starting to come, then you start thinking about retirement. You start thinking about home ownership. Taya, you just said you're looking to buy your first home. Business ownership is next on that. And those things are all attainable, but it starts with kind of that first step. And that first step is first the knowledge, which is kind of the part where everybody can have knowledge, but how do you apply it? And who do you work with to put that into place? And that's where I think where Dinette has done a lot, and Taya, in terms of financial coaching.
And we didn't necessarily talk about this in our kind of preparatory conversations for this webinar, but I think in your role, I'm sure insurance comes up often for for women and being properly insured. Could you talk about a little bit of insurance as an asset or a way to protect your asset?
Yeah, we don't work directly in insurance, but our clients we're at the table for all of our clients' needs. So we're always thinking about that, because to your point, that asset building, the 3 months of emergency, that's not just a pandemic. We're not waiting for something like that to happen. Somebody can lose their job tomorrow. Somebody can be met with a medical situation. So that preparedness to be there, insurance is a big part of that. And so understanding where you might not want to write a check for something that you can't see, it's not tangible, and you may well never use. You can see the importance of it when you look back at your life and you look at things that have happened throughout your family and examples where that would have absolutely saved a situation. So we work with our clients, making sure the medical coverage is what it should be. And that's a whole other change over the last few years of kind of where to obtain coverage, how to do that. But, employment is the biggest part of that. So if you can obtain insurance that way, also life insurance, looking out for your kids, there are ways to obtain life insurance in a way that shouldn't change your lifestyle. And you start small and you build on that as well. It's the same idea.
Thank you for that. Dinette, as we talk about asset building and, the asset poverty rate, how do we start to normalize these conversations so they don't feel unique or special, particularly in the coaching space?
So I've worked with, I've taught in the prisons, the men's and women's prison and probation and parole, and I've worked with the homeless. And what amazes me is that someone can start anywhere. Right? It's always, in other words, it doesn't matter where you are, it's where you start to go. And so the important thing about having these conversations with someone is that we have to first believe that someone has the capacity to be able to get themselves and move themselves forward, and treating them with that respect. I think that that's something that sadly, I see that sometimes the very people that are working with these populations to help them are the people that for some reason have become jaded, or something has happened in their life where they don't believe that the people in front of them are capable of achieving home ownership or of building up a savings account or an emergency fund. And to me, that's a real problem, because everyone deserves respect, and you never know someone's story. I was a military spouse and doing, had a really good life, 20 years. They taught us nothing about money, like I mentioned at the beginning. But then I found myself in the midst of a divorce after 20 years of marriage. And I went from a very comfortable life to a very poor life, no heat in the house, and, having to get Thanksgiving dinner delivered to the home, like charitable organizations. And I knew nothing about money. And I remember you suddenly feel like everyone treats you like somehow you're not capable, or how could you, and they don't know your story. So I think for all of us, we should really always remember that we can be wherever we are, but if we don't have the foundations like savings, emergency funds, and all of that, anything can happen. And we've seen what COVID did so quickly to so many people, regardless of their financial position. So I think it's about that. It's about being respectful and just knowing that everyone has the capacity to do well for themselves if there's someone there that believes in them and can help them to move forward.
Thank you. Is there anything else, Kim or Taya, you'd like to add to that?
I do want to add on.
Yeah, please.
You do. You have to listen to people's stories, and I think too, maybe we have to tell ourselves that in the morning each day, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to be somebody. Well, I am somebody. Now I am somebody. You got to look at yourself in the mirror and tell yourself that every day. We all have a story to tell, every last one of us, but we got to stick to the prize and motivate ourselves. And sometimes too, losing weight, saving money, whatever the situation is, sometimes we got to motivate ourselves. In the morning time, I always smile at everybody. Good morning, good morning. Have a positive attitude. Your smile is contagious. Smile. Be happy. Love life. But we all have a story to tell. You said you must have money, but you fell down. Life happens. Things happen. You never know. You just never know what can happen. A divorce will take over your life, but you can't let it kill you. You gotta let it make you grow. Stepping stones. I was here, and I can be back here.
Thank you for that. And I appreciate we talking about self-efficacy. And I want to acknowledge that despite best efforts, sometimes there are systems that bump against that self-efficacy. And, for example, we're talking about asset building. A lot of our anti-poverty work, a lot of policies actually discourage families from building assets or make it difficult to do so, by putting limits on the assets you can have in order to get access to certain benefits. Diane, this is something I want to pull you into the conversation, because you and I talk a lot about the self-sufficiency standards and really what it takes from an income perspective in order to kind of take care of a home or a family. And along with that, having policies that limit families' abilities to save, right? And to build the kind of assets that Taya's talking about. So could you talk a little bit about just the systems that make it difficult for women to truly achieve financial capability?
Yeah, so a lot of people look at federal poverty levels, right? And they say if you're below a certain poverty level, and these poverty levels haven't really changed. Think about that, have not changed over the course of the years when the cost of living has increased dramatically. So there's something called the Self-Sufficiency Standard Report, which Pathways, actually it was a group, I forget where it was at, but it's a way to measure what people really need to make based on family size, geographic location, right? In order to just live and meet basic needs. So like rent, food, childcare. So I'm going to give you an example. So in Philadelphia, for a single mother with 2 children, a livable wage for this person in order to just pay rent, pay for childcare, pay for food, transportation, and not include any debt.
So no student loans.
And no student
No
loans.
debt service, no student loans.
It's $68,000 a year, $34 an hour if you work 40 hours a week. Because childcare for 2 children on average in Philadelphia is about $1,600 a month. So this is why women are dropping out of the workforce. They can't even afford to work. So yes, increasing the minimum wage of $15 an hour, which is a federal right one thing, is helpful, but we have to move towards a more self-sufficiency standard of living, of really looking at wages, right? So policies around minimum wage and sub-minimum wage, where, you know, for waitresses, you know, which is still dominated by women, is ridiculous. That's based in slavery. We just need to get rid of that, period. That's a policy issue. The other big thing which is really a barrier for women is women often in jobs that don't have benefits, health benefits, paid family and sick leave, right? So, and are often, so if they have to take care of a child, they lose wages, they lose money. And they don't have health benefits. And what's crazy about this country is we're in the middle of a pandemic and we're still fighting against universal health care. I just don't get it. I don't get it. So one health situation can totally just destabilize a family like that because they don't have adequate health coverage. And even those who do have it, the co-pays and the deductibles are ridiculous. So we're about universal health care. We're about paid family and medical leave. We're about real livable wages. These are all policies that have it. And the other thing is care infrastructure. Taya, you said you work in childcare, right? The early childcare education, right?
Yeah, so we're going to Head Start.
Yeah, so there's 2 pieces to that. One, the cost of childcare or access to affordable quality childcare is limited, and it's gotten more limited because of the pandemic. If for women to go to work, if you're a mother, you need really good childcare and affordable childcare. And of course, there's very limited affordable high quality childcare. The other piece to that is those who work in the sector are grossly underpaid. I think the average.
Speak on it, yeah.
So the average, I think it was in Pennsylvania, the average hourly is like $11 or $12 an hour. And many of these women have associate's degrees and bachelor's degrees. So don't tell me that all you have to do is get a college education and everything's going to take care of itself. That is a bunch of BS. I'm not that saying. I'm great to get advanced education, but it's not. But the salaries are not commensurate with the education of women.
That's right, and that's a structural issue. That's something we could change if we wanted to change. And Diane, I would love to. You and I would talk about this so much, but I would love to line up kind of federal poverty rate guideline is $21,000 for family of 3, $790 in Philadelphia for family of 3. Self-sufficiency is $68,000 for family of 3. Think about that gap. The maximum salary you can earn to receive a child care subsidy in Philadelphia is $46,000. So we're still below the self-sufficiency, but twice the poverty level. But then there's still a gap. Right? There's still a gap for folks who earn between 200% of federal poverty and self-sufficiency. What do those folks do? I mean, I think if we threw all these numbers up on a board and then we added programs that limit families' abilities to save, right? That say that you can't have more than $2,000 or $5,000 in assets. And assets are what help people move away from subsidy, right?
Yes.
Right? To be able to think and dream and plan for the future, our system has to change. So I just wanted to, we were talking about kind of individual agency, which is an important piece of this conversation. And that's why I like your financial capability also talks about access, right? And in the role of systems, in either creating or denying opportunity for folks to build those assets.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hear, and Kim said it, Taya is showing it. Women are really good at saving. I mean, it's particularly lower wealth, lower income women.
That's right.
No choice. They're the most creative, resourceful people I know.
That's right.
They're good at it, but they need more access to like coaches, but they also need higher wages and more money.
And opportunities to build assets.
And I'm going to say this. People always say, well, go into fields dominated by men because they get paid more. You know what? let's pay women more that are in fields dominated by women. Let's do that, right? And stop undervaluing the work that we do, which just drives me crazy. So, I mean, so I don't want this notion that women don't, and then low income don't save. They are incredible savers. They have, you know, they know how to leverage resources and do, what was it? There's like time banking that people are doing and creating their own local economies. I mean, they're the most creative people I know, but it's still, that's not the solution, right? I mean, you know, so, okay, I'll step back now.
Quite all right. That's really helpful. Dinette, Kim, anything you'd like to add? Taya, anything you'd like to add to the conversation when we're in preach mode?
Yeah, I just, you know, as I'm hearing all that, I just think about how true that is. If persons with disabilities, the limiting, you know, the limit that they can gain, you know, I'm at the age now where, you know, I'm getting the Social Security letters and whatever, and what I might qualify for. But then I own a business. And so I'm sitting there looking at the numbers and going, oh, sure, well, maybe I should just go ahead and start getting it now. I don't know if I'll be around when I'm 70, why not? And the minute you start thinking about that, then you go do the numbers and you realize that then you can't earn what you're earning in your business because there's certain issues with that. And so it's like everywhere we turn, there's some kind of limit to what you can earn if you're trying to benefit. When you think about Social Security, you earn the right, you're paying into that. Right. And yet there's a limit to what, when and how. And so there's just, it's so frustrating because you know, I had a daughter that was trying to do the right things and, you know, with my grandkids. And at some point we had to tell her, stop working, because her sister and I were having to handle all the babysitting and moving from one place to another and running from our jobs to pick her up or to pick up the kids. And if she earned $1 over what she was allowed to earn, she was going to lose her benefits. And we're talking 4 children at the time, right? And she was working at McDonald's. And so we finally figured that she was living with us anyway. It was just better for us to kind of carry the burden, right? And help her, and then let her work towards entrepreneurship is what we did. And it's what I do with a lot of people that are living in poverty and want to really start moving. And people think that to start a business requires, you know, a business loan. And what if I don't have perfect credit? We're not talking about businesses where, you know, you're renting a space in a restaurant. We're talking about tiny little businesses, things that people can do from home, right? A mom at home with that many children, she has talent, she has skills, things that she can do online and offer a service and start to generate revenues for she's home anyway. She can't go and find a job. So how about we help her with starting a business? And so that's the other part of me that I advocate for so much, is talking to people. I've talked to homeless people in training programs and I said, well, what about starting a business? And they look at me like I have 2 heads, right? Like, do you see where I'm at? I'm in a homeless shelter. And yet by the time we're done with the program, we have them starting a tiny little business. You know, so many people just need help with little things that somebody has the capacity to do it. We've had people like, you know, lawnmower on the side of the street that somebody else discarded, they fixed it. And next thing you know, they're generating revenue and then they start to grow that business and turn it into something, you know, more permanent and whatever. But I find that that's the only other way sometimes to get people to be able to move out of where they are, because there's so many limits, there's so many barriers, and people think people want to live in these situations, but there's just so many things getting in their way. It's terrible.
Can I just, Markita, can I say something about, you know, and I want to actually shoot this over to Kimberly, Kim, you know, that capital, moving capital to businesses, right? Women-owned businesses, and particularly Black and brown-owned businesses, get less than like 3% of all capital, like investments. So, Kimberly, I love to hear, you know, Permit Capital is trying to do things with foundations, with mission-aligned investing. We're trying to move more capital to maybe women-owned businesses, minority-owned business. I don't want to say minority, but Black and brown-owned businesses. Could you just kind of talk more about that? Because I think that's a part of the solution here, that in terms of moving capital to more women and Black and brown-owned businesses.
Yeah, and I really do believe that it's an obligation of what I think is community. It's the people around us. It's to everybody's benefit that things move in a better direction and people are more financially independent, because the government is certainly not, we've seen, providing a pathway to independence. There's roadblocks all over the place. So who else has a responsibility and an obligation? It's the community. It's where you live. And that's what, not only are we doing that because we feel good about that and we want to help and we want to be a part of that, we have found so much interest and so much support out there. So now it's a matter of people coming to us saying, how can we help? How can we help in the Philadelphia region? What can we support? What can we invest in, right? Whether it's investing in women-owned businesses. There's so many different, there's real estate opportunities to build up neighborhoods. There's all kinds of opportunities really out there. How do we introduce those to people that want to find those? And that's become a really interesting part of the investment landscape, is this social impact investing, where people aren't looking necessarily for a 50% return or a 10% return. They want to do something good with their capital. And there are a lot of people out there to do that. So now putting these programs together, kind of turning under the rocks and finding programs out there that are looking for capital. And it can be investing in an equity kind of an ownership of that group. It can be kind of loans to different individuals or different groups that are trying to do things. And a lot of that we are seeing kind of in this whole gender wealth gap is really supporting women-owned businesses. And again, we are seeing so much support across the country and so much interest for people that want to get involved and want to do something. So now we have to find the opportunities and put it together. And I think it's a puzzle, right? It's policy, it's financial coaching, it's literacy, it's community taking an active role. It's all of those things that kind of turns things around.
Yeah, and I just, if you don't mind, Markita, I just want to elaborate. Yeah, so Women's Way, we have a small endowment, and this is about foundations, right? Philanthropy, who is supposed to be addressing inequities in many ways, does not do that very well.
You said it.
I said it. I'm gonna take ownership over it. And so what? And Permit Capital is helping us look at this, and I think a lot of foundations are starting to look at their own investments. So what companies are we making investments in? Are they promoting more racial and gender inequities? So we are intentionally, and I know Kim and Adam Landau, who's co-CEO, he's also on our board, is helping foundations assess their investments and start moving some of their investments to companies that are promoting gender and racial equity. And I think that's a really important thing to do. I'd like to share that with all foundations. I think it's something, where is your investments going and how can investments actually start promoting more gender and racial equity and moving money into more of these types of companies? So I think that's really interesting. We're also looking at crowdfunding investing, and I think this is really cool because this allows people to invest maybe $100, $500 into like women-owned businesses or whatever the focus is, and to start moving money to business owners that historically are cut out, but it also is building future investors, a pipeline of women who traditionally don't have enough, like I don't have $500,000 or 20, but I can invest $100 into this as a crowdfunding investing, and collectively we can actually help support these companies.
Right, and it democratizes equity investment. Yeah. So equity is not just held in the hands of the few. Large chunks of equity are held in the hands of the few. Is better distributed, right, amongst community, and probably more likely to have investors that are proximate to the founders and the folks who are running these businesses in the first place, from a racial, gender, and lived experience perspective.
Right, so they're closer to those who are investing, and they tend then to also invest more than just their money, like they'll help mentor or other resources, which I think that Dinette, you were talking about, that it's not just money, they need sometimes education and mentoring and things like that. So I just think there's a lot of models out there that are really trying to really shift where money is going and who has control over those decisions. And I want to ask Markita to share your model, because I think what you're doing at Compass is really a great model. So if you would share what you do.
Yeah. So when Diana introduced me, she mentioned that we work primarily with families that live in federally subsidized housing, either through public housing authorities or private nonprofit and for-profit developers of affordable housing. In the program we operate, we've built this model for a 30-year-old HUD supported program called Family Self-Sufficiency. Not our title, it's their title, but it's called Family Self-Sufficiency. And the beauty of FSS for short is that it has a built-in mechanism that allows families to convert basically rent payments into savings. So families who live in federally subsidized housing typically pay about 30% of their income towards their rent. And as their income goes up, so too does their rent. So it was designed to be an affordability mechanism, but it does have the unintended consequence of making it difficult for families to get ahead, because as they earn more, they're paying more. But then we talked about these other limits. They start to lose other benefits that are income tested or means tested. So, you know, you're paying 30% of your rent. That feels good at one level. You start making more, you have an increase in rent, but at the same time you lose your SNAP benefit or your child care subsidy or any other kind of subsidy. And you're not, but you don't earn enough to make up the difference. And I think that's the point. What this program tries to do, it allows families that if they enroll and their income increases at some point following the enrollment and their rent increases, the difference between their old rent and their new rent goes into a savings account that they can accrue for 5 years. There's in some limited circumstances, they can expand that to 7 years, but generally 5 years. We see families graduate from these programs, exit these programs, saving on average $8,000 over their time in the program, making significant gains. Because in addition to the savings account, this asset building opportunity, we also provide financial coaching, very high quality, family centered, dignity inspiring and centering coaching, similar to the work that Women's Way does, to support families along their journeys to dream and plan and invest in the future and basically change the trajectory of their family's life, and to also think about the intergenerational transfer of wealth. You know, I've been reading a lot now about kind of generational poverty. Brookings has done some really interesting studies, and it shows that once that 30+% of Black people are third generation in their family to experience poverty, and as compared to 1.9% of white people. And, you know, for a lot of the families we serve, we often hear that this program helps to break generational cycles of poverty because it's their first opportunity to build assets. And the beauty about this particular account is that it's not counted in asset tests for other means tested programs. So it is absolutely unique. It is kind of unfortunately like a hidden gem among anti-poverty programs because it's baked into federally subsidized housing. Our vision is that it becomes the norm in the delivery of federally subsidized housing. Right now, families have to hear about it, learn about it, enroll in it. Our vision is that any family, from the day you move in, is automatically given access to that account and the opportunity to begin building assets. It's such a powerful tool. It accelerates so much around families' economic mobility. And we are doing a ton of policy work at the federal level to ensure its continued operation. It's been around for 30 years. It's enjoyed bipartisan support over the years. Under the Trump administration, actually, we got an increase of $25 million for the program. So it's funded by HUD, and HUD funds right now housing authorities to run these programs. So, HUD in the last budget, $105 million for these programs nationally. The Biden administration's FY22 budget has $120 million in the program, and we're hoping that for the next fiscal year, we just start seeing an increase, particularly as the Biden administration expands access to housing choice vouchers. That means more families who have the ability to participate, so more money should be available to support this kind of asset building opportunity. I could go on. I will not. Taya, you're participating in this program, correct? And you've been working with Clarify. Clarify is Compass's execution partner for our work, our partnership with the Philly Housing Authority. And we've been running the Philly Housing Authority's FSS program since about late 2018. It's been a phenomenal partnership. We look to continue. We work with several housing authorities around the country. And just a few years ago, HUD authorized private, both nonprofit and for-profit affordable housing developers to also run these programs. And HUD funds the accounts. And here's the kicker, there's no cap, at least not yet, but there's no cap on the amount of escrow that families can earn and that housing authorities can pay into families. So that's a beautiful thing.
It's awesome.
You know, and we estimate that there are about 2.2 million households nationally who could benefit from this program. Unfortunately, enrollment is small at about 70,000, and there are several barriers, several reasons for that. And I won't go into deep detail about the barriers, but our goal is to just unlock all of it, blow it up, open it up, get to that, grow that 70,000 to 2.2 million as fast as we can do it.
And that's why we have to collaborate. I mean, you're doing this work, we got to get the word out. We got to, you know, these are promising practices or models, right, of asset building models that are really effective and working. So I think, Taya, did you want to say something? You look like you're ready to.
Oh, no, I did have wonderful experience. Like, you know, I'm actually doing a program right now. I actually don't know what a part of the city I want to move in yet. So that's like, haven't figured out the perfect location for me. If y'all knew find a nice house in your area, let me know so I can check the house out. Maybe y'all could be a next door neighbor. But I am, it was really beneficial, definitely really beneficial. I think that you said like the barriers, a lot of people don't know about the programs, and some people don't know about the programs. Or, you know, you get the letters in the mail, people just throw them in the trash. But the barriers, you know, you can't have your sister living with you if she's on hard times, but if you have your own house, she can live with you. You know, there's a lot of things I want to do in my house. I can't do these things because this is not my house. I wanted to open up a daycare, even though I want to open a daycare center. I babysit children all the time, but running it, I can't have a business, not because this is not my house to do. Like, you know, I have it all the time. People say I need someone to watch my children. They'll call Miss Taya all the time. Oh, she'll watch it. She watch it. You know, well, you need to open up your own daycare center. I'm like, you are absolutely right, but this is not my property and I can't. So as soon as I get in the house, a year later, I'm gonna open my own daycare center. So I don't have to worry about anything. I'll be fine.
I love that. I love that. And this is what we see a lot.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I've seen a lot of people who, you know what I want to say too, people who complete the program. That's another thing. If they come back and tell them, you know, this program worked for me, you know, I would tell everyone, all the information, I pass it down. I give it to everyone. You take it, if you don't, you don't. But I'll say, at least I gave you the information that you have. So it's definitely a wonderful program. Definitely a wonderful program.
And Taya, we would want you to be an ambassador, because one of the things we often hear from people is that it feels like it's too good to be true. They just don't believe that. Wait, you mean I continue to pay rent the way I normally pay rent, and then through that I'm going to build savings over time? Yes. And there's no catch, and it has no impact whatsoever on your housing. You don't lose your housing if you don't graduate. You don't lose your housing for not participating or for participating. So yeah, it's the best kept secret in terms of anti-poverty solutions that this country has to offer. And one of the few, if not the only, that actually supports and encourages asset building when there's so many disincentives otherwise.
And I would love to be ambassador. Call me up. I'll let everybody.
Listen.
I love the talk. I like the call me up.
Yes, I got you. I know Christy, your coach is on now. Christy, we should have locked down Taya to be an additional ambassador. We got you.
Well, I mean, I've been ambassador for financial coaching since we started this journey with Dinette like a few years ago, and learning more about your program. We all need to be ambassadors of these, right?
That's right.
And the work that Permanent Capital is doing around mission line investing and trying to really move capital to business owners that don't traditionally have access to that capital. That's really great. And getting foundations to look at their investments in a way that really is going to be investing in companies that promote gender and racial equity. So these are all really good things, and we need to be ambassadors for each other, right? Like, let's speak up and say, you know, and how do we scale this stuff, right?
Right.
You know, and I think that's what we're trying to do at Women's Way, is scaling up the financial coaching program and also changing the narrative of how we talk about this. So it becomes—
I'm so glad you said that, Diane. I wanted you to talk a little bit about the change the narrative work.
Yeah, so the way we talk about poverty and the way we talk about women who are low wealth or low income is very judgmental, it's stigmatizing, right? And I think Dinette was getting to that, like coaching is the opposite of that, right? And really those closest to the injustices, the pain of injustice are closest to the solution. So women with lived experience of economic hardship, they need to be the narrators talking about the root causes of economic insecurity and gender wealth gap and racial wealth gap, and as well as the solutions. They know what the solutions are. And yet the narrators are often not those with lived experience. So part of what we're saying is change the narrator and the narratives. Pass the baton to those who are experiencing the pain of injustices and who know what the solutions are. And so we have a fellowship program where we're training women with lived experiences to tell their stories in ways that highlight their aspirations, their contributions, their resilience, and highlights the systemic and root causes of economic injustices to media, philanthropy, and policymakers, because they are the key decision makers many times in our systems, and we need to change the way they think about it, the way they talk about it, and invest in more asset building strategies like yours, Markita, your program, invest in more financial coaching. You know, so Taya, your voice and other voices, we are really elevating their voices. They are experts. They are experts on this topic.
And it doesn't mean that we all don't have a role to play, right? No, so we all have a role to play in moving the needle and in building and pushing for and creating opportunity and pushing for systems change. So just want to be absolutely clear about that, because I think sometimes in our conversation around changing the narrative and centering the voices of people with lived experiences, there's an assumption that they should also be the primary source of the labor. And my perspective is no, like everybody should be doing it. They should be directing and leading, and everybody else should be performing the work.
Yeah, so we actually say women with lived experience should not just be passive recipients of services, but actors and influencers. So they help influence all the stakeholders, whether it's the financial advisors, wealth management companies, banking institutions, philanthropy, all the players, politicians, policymakers. They're no longer just passive recipients, they're actors and influencers. And that's why we all need to be at the table talking about these issues. Yeah. Because we're all part of the solution. We have to be. That's the only way we're going to move the needle on this. So
yeah. Dinette, I would love to hear you talk about, you know, sometimes we think of financial coaching as this like siloed individual experience, but I know there's tons of work. So financial coaching has been embedded in a lot of different places and environments. Could you talk a little bit about that, where it's shown up and the different ways and that you've been able to work with clients in different environments and experiences?
Absolutely. Thank you for that question. So, for example, financial coaches make great partners with financial investors like Kimberly's company, for example, because it's that person that is then helping them make decisions, especially when we start talking about people that are starting to build assets, right? And wealth building that are starting at a level where they need a lot of help in the beginning. But also, I've been working with financial coaches that are working with senior centers and working in places where seniors are living so that they can advise the 50+ communities. There are financial coaches working closely with housing programs so that for the same reason, so that they can coach those people. Because even when someone buys a home, they think about the payment, the mortgage payment, but they forget about the heater that goes out or the air conditioner that goes or the new refrigerator, right? So working with housing counselors, it goes across the board in every aspect that you can think of where a financial coach can benefit and change the conversation, and creates the hope. It helps. A lot of it is about behavior change too. So a financial coach is working closely with someone on understanding how to start to believe in themselves and begin to create new habits, because financial coaches work on habit change, right? Starting small, like I think Kimberly mentioned, starting very small and continuing to build. And then it's working, I work with small business bankers, and we talk about financial coaching and how they're integrating that in small business banking so that they can help those solopreneurs and the people that are really starting the small businesses. And again, working with homeless organizations, because, you know, part of the problem, and I think why financial coaching is so amazing, is that for so long in the system of education, we've treated it almost like in school, where it's like the history teacher, the math teacher, you know, and the science teacher, right? And I don't know about you, but then I have such a love for science and math now. And when I was in my formal education days, I was like, you want me to take what? A chemistry class? Why? I'm a psych major. Why do I need chemistry, right? And now I understand, well, we treat empowering people the same way. So you teach workforce development, I'll teach financial literacy, somebody else will teach them another aspect. And what we don't do is connect the dots. We don't say, okay, so a decision you made somewhere else 3 years ago is still haunting you, and you don't realize it because the decision had nothing to do with money at the time. It was a decision. I think Taya provided a beautiful example where she made an empowering decision, that vacation to Disney World, right? People make that decision and, okay, well, you know, but we need to do things as a family and we haven't gone on a vacation in years. But then they forget that that decision now could be affecting their potential to do something. So we have to help people connect money and finances to all parts of their lives. We mentioned, I think Kimberly was talking about health, and we were talking about all the different aspects. And so a financial coach brings all that together. A financial coach says, let's look at everything. What's going on in your life? You know, when people come to me and they want to start a business, and I know they're going through a divorce, I'm asking, is this the right time to start a business? Why? Because the emotional support that you need when you're starting a business and all the things that are going on in a divorce, is that the right time? These are things that were not necessarily done before, and financial coaches are bringing all that together. We're looking at everything, not just the money. So it's not just, okay, let's teach you financial literacy. Great, you know what a budget is, you know how to save, you need to know how to do all that. But you don't realize that every time you step into a convenience store, you know, Taya was mentioning the Dollar Tree, right? We just don't connect all those things. So what happens is we don't realize, we don't think about all the other decisions. Or make a child that drops out of high school, look at the impact, right? But it doesn't define them. It doesn't mean that they don't have opportunities, but we focus so much on the formal education piece that we don't say, yeah, but what about these other skills, these other talents that you have that can begin to generate? So I talk about income producing activities. I don't even talk about, you know, a job, because a job may or may not be available to certain people. So let's talk about income producing activities and kind of put that all together so that somebody can really create you know, wealth and begin to get themselves to the place where they want. So for me, that's one of the things that I think financial coaching does, and why it fits so well in so many systems. I have taught financial coaching in high schools as part of a class, because we realize that financial coaching to teens and preparing them for college, right? So there's financial coaches now working with in college education and working with teaching FAFSA and doing all these other things, because we now realize that we've got to stop treating the money part as if it's in this little box, and not really helping people see the bigger picture and how it fits into everything. So yeah, that's such an important part, and why I love financial coaching so much.
Thank you so much for that, Dinette. It is absolutely palpable that you have a passion for financial coaching. You can read it all over your face and definitely hear it in your voice and your spirit. So we appreciate that. I want to, the chat has been quiet and there's no Q&A so far, but in our last few minutes or so, I do want to give the audience a chance to raise their hands, throw something in the chat or Q&A right now. Just any sort of reactions or thoughts, anything that's bubbling up for you that you want to surface and share with the group, feel free to do it. And okay, thank you, Christy. Christy's asking, will we be able to talk a little more about the intersection of gender and racial wealth and some of the work that's being done in this sector, and also thoughts in general around this topic? Excellent. Yes, so gender and the racial wealth gaps, and also how to close and address the gender and racial wealth gaps. Thank you for raising that, specifically around intersectionality. Who'd like to jump in and have that conversation? Diane, do you want to address it first?
Yeah, I mean, yes. So one of the things we say at Women's Way is we're never going to achieve gender equity without racial equity. How am I going to talk about this in a way that, okay. So the poorest people in this country are Black and brown women and Indigenous women. And that's not by chance. It's because it's grounded in a white supremacist culture that has created a hierarchy of human value where white men are at the top and women of color at the bottom because of sexism and racism. And I know this is a big issue, and I've been talking a lot about this, but if we don't deal with how our capitalism system was the foundation of it, which was based on creating race for the purpose of putting white men at the top of the economic pyramid. This is not against white men. I'm just putting out history here. That it was systematically, intentionally created to exploit certain people in our country, so a certain subgroup of people could accumulate massive amounts of wealth. And it happens to be, I'm sorry, white men were doing this and exploiting Africans and then many women. And so we have this whole hierarchy of human need, and we have to first be very honest about our history. Right there. And then talk about how our history is still playing out today. There's a reason why women, and particularly Black and brown women, are at the bottom, not because they're less capable, it's because of less opportunities. You know, we've been hearing it, having less access to opportunities because of systems grounded in racism and sexism. So first of all, we have to be very honest about that, right? And have those conversations with people that are, and it's hard, it's about power dynamics. I mean, we're starting to have these conversations with philanthropy. And I read a great article about, you know, philanthropy it measures impact about how much money they give away. Well, look at us, we gave out $3 million to 40 organizations, aren't we great? And that doesn't change equity. It's really not moving the needle on equity, on inequities right now. And so what we're saying too, well, here's a change. We want to change philanthropy to say, first of all, don't just give away things, give up something. And that is give up some of your power and your decision-making power and give it over to communities. Communities, real impact should be measured by our communities getting more resources, more money, capital, whatever, to build their communities under their own decisions and their autonomy. Are they getting more decision-making power? Not those sitting in boardrooms deciding where to fund, who to fund, and why to fund. So that's disrupting the whole power system. But I'm going to give a little hope here. There are funders talking about this differently. They are saying, whoa, how do we really promote equity in philanthropy, right? And I think, you know, Kimberly's World is looking at this too, right? And I mean, I love that permanent capital is saying, yeah, we help wealthy people become wealthier, but how do we start moving capital in ways that can open the doors for more people that don't have that, you know, large amounts of wealth, right? How do we start redistributing money in ways that is more equitable? So there are, I think, the pandemic, the one good thing about the pandemic, it's highlighted the gross inequities, the gross racism that is systemic in our country. It is highlighted at a point that I think a lot of white people can't deny it anymore. And I think there's conversations happening that will lead to change. Mental models are changing. So I don't know, that's a big thing, but I feel hopeful.
Yeah, thank you, Diane. Thank you for that. I want to make sure in our last few minutes, there's a question specifically for Taya. I would love to give you the opportunity to answer this. So the question is from Tasha. What would you want the Head Start families you serve to know to help them reach their financial goals? And do you think Head Start programs should be doing more to educate families? And Tasha, I'm just going to edit that a little bit, to support families in building their financial capability.
Okay, I'll answer the first question was, Head Start would they be able to support the family? There's a lot of things I think they can change with the program, because they do give us flyers to give to the parents. And sometimes you can get flyers, you can throw them in the mail, you throw them in the trash can. Sometimes you need a backup call. Hey, like they have things for like GED program. Let's say a parent doesn't have a GED, or they want a high school diploma, and they'll give them flyers and say, here's a flyer, they have it here. I think they need to do a follow-up. Hey, Miss Such and Such, did you get the flyer received? Are you interested in that? Do you need me to help you register? Because some people might not know how to register for classes. They don't know how to use the computer. Some people don't have email addresses. Things that we think that people know, they don't know. You know, I think that you know how to read. I think that you know how to write, but you might not know, you know. So sometimes you might need to hold people by the hand just a little to get the ball rolling. So I do think Head Starts can change. They have a lot of information, but I think they need more hand in hand. Where they say, give you a budget, but sometimes you need somebody to say, my coach told me, bring all the receipts. I'm writing down everything, but you got to see, you need somebody to hold your hands a little bit. Well, do you see all the things that's wrong with your budget? Do you see all these things? So Head Start can definitely help a whole lot. And what was the second question did she ask?
Do you think, and I think you've answered that, do you think Head Start families should be doing more to help families with their finances, with their financial capability?
I do. Also, too, like you said before, there's a gap. So if you make more money, you won't qualify for Head Start. You have to be a Head Start is a low income program. So if you make so much money, your children, they don't qualify to go. So that is a problem too. The times, let's say we went from 8 to 3 o'clock. I think maybe it can be longer, because if you have a job, you have to pick your children up, the same thing. So they do have a program like CCIS, some type of subsidy to help them before and after care if they need it. But it's a lot of things. Head Start definitely can help with the parents a whole lot.
Markita, can I add that one of the areas that I've seen financial coaching is precisely with Head Start. So there was an organization called Telemon, and I actually have trained people for them in Delaware and Indiana and North Carolina. And they really embrace financial coaching, and precisely. And so what they started doing was that we trained their case managers that went to the homes and worked with the parents. We trained them as financial coaches. And so they were just connecting that. So when they went into homes, not only did they do their normal things that they do with the parents, but they actually helped them using financial coaching to help them also financially. And I think that I thought was a great thing about that organization, that they embraced it. So that's an opportunity for financial coaching to really be part of that. And I know Women's Way, like one of the things was the whole, daycare initiatives, and I mean that's such a great way to also to this person's question, how to help. I think it's amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's this idea about embedding financial coaching into all kinds of services where folks are already connecting, where there are already meaningful relationships. Because a crucial part of it, and I'm surprised that we haven't used this word over and over again, is trust. Is trust building. So, if a already trusted resource can also be a place where you seek and connect with and get supports around finances, which can be so difficult for folks to talk about. It's a source of so much shame and hurt and pain for people. So I think that's definitely why it can make sense to embed financial coaching into other experiences where trust already exists. And so with that, I just want to give each of our panelists about 30 seconds to kind of share any final thoughts that you want to make sure you share with us before we say goodbye. Kim?
Yeah, if I didn't feel it before, I feel it even more so today, that it's a collaboration. Again, it's a puzzle. There are so many people doing so many good things, but to pull it all together to provide that pathway to financial independence for women, it's so important. It's government, it's community, it's groups like Women's Way that are doing financial coaching. Markita, I had never heard of that program that you just mentioned. I think that's just wrong. People should know about these things and should be pushing for more funding. And if we all work together, I think it's going to keep moving in the right direction, but there's still a lot of work to do. But there are a lot of people here pulling in resources from different places, and that's what women need. And I think it's important. When you said trust, I really believe that if you're not comfortable to share your story, to sit down at a table with a financial coach that you trust, you're never going to buy in. You're never going to believe you can do it, and you're not going to trust that person. So I think it kind of comes down to finding the right partner to start your journey. And it's everybody kind of pulling in the same direction. So this is great.
Thank you so much. Dinette?
Yeah, what I'd love to leave everyone with is that sometimes there are people thinking that financial coaching is too complicated, that it takes too much time. They envision like this whole 1 hour thing, right? Like that I'm going to coach somebody. And what I want to leave them with is that, you know, financial coaching can be a seed that you plant. It's about how you ask questions and listening to someone. And sometimes you can coach someone in a quick conversation and you plant a seed that they take with them. And then when they come back, it continues to evolve. So financial coaching can be integrated into any kind of case management, any kind of work. It can be easily integrated. And we need to stop thinking that it's just going to complicate and how do our people get it done? There's so much opportunity, and it's just a matter of realizing that it's just a different conversation. That's what we're really talking about. A very different conversation that can be integrated into anything we're doing.
Thank you so much. And Taya?
Yes, I will leave everyone with, first of all, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed myself. I learned a lot of things from everyone. And I will be proof. It worked for me. You know, I went through the steps. Hopefully by September, I'll be able to buy my house, and I'll keep you guys posted. You'll give my email to everyone. I'll definitely walk you through it from the beginning to the end. I'll tell my story to everyone.
Thank you. And you're going to be an ambassador for our program, so yeah, really appreciate
That's the promise. That's the promise.
Thank you so much, Diane. Thank you, Women's Way. Diane, any closing remarks from you?
Yeah, just real quickly, because I know it's 5:32. First of all, thank you all. Thank you, Taya, Kimberly, Dinette, Markita, for a really important, engaging discussion. Thank you, Permanent Capital, for investing in this. And I just want, the last thing is, everyone has the capacity to do well for themselves, as Dinette said. But I'm going to say, you know, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to help women achieve economic, financial capability. So let's continue to work together, learn from each other, break down those silos, and build real pathways to economic security. And it's all here. It's there. So we'll keep working that. So thank you so much. There will be another one coming up in September around intimate partner violence and economic gender wealth gap, and that will be in September. But thank you again, all. That was a great discussion, and I wish you well and have a great evening, everyone. And thank you for coming, for those who came. Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.